get the very best for your time because green economy is where we see the nation going to, and then we see a lot of things coming into play about the eco species and things like that. And in this call, these are the things that we'll be discussing about. In this session, rather, these are the important things that we'll be discussing about. So I want us to get as many persons as possible. Let us share and invite as many persons as possible to join the session. So we'll be doing that in another 3 minutes. Let's get as many persons as possible to join in the session. Repost in your WhatsApp status, repost the meeting link in your story, repost everywhere you think you can actually repost it so we can get as many persons to join in the session. So in another 2 minutes, I'd like for us to do that. Welcome, Mr. Olubenga, my very own person. It's an honor to see you and have you in today's session, sir. You're welcome. All right, so let's get as many persons as possible. Let's repost, let's share to our WhatsApp status, invite your personal persons, your friends, your colleagues. Let's get them in. Let's get them in. Energy, energy. I want to see lots of energy in the room tonight. You know how we do it. I want to see a lot of energy. Let's get as many persons to join in the session. Let's repost it, share the meeting link, share the invite link. Let's get once we get up to 10 or 15 persons, we are kickstarting the session because I know we are all busy with some other things and I wouldn't want to take a lot of our time. But then the essence of the session must be achieved, which is to impact knowledge and see how everyone can benefit from the session. So let's get as many persons as possible. Let's share the link, share it to 5, 10 persons that you know, share it to 20 persons, share it to 30 persons. Let's get everyone in. All right, so in another 2 minutes, we'll be kickstarting the session. Thank you for joining in. All right, in another minute, we'll be starting the session. In another 1 minute, we'll be with an emoji. If you can hear me, kindly indicate with an emoji, any emoji, so I can know that we are together. Beautiful. Welcome, Tovia. Welcome, everyone. So we'll be going straight into the session for today. And I'm very, very excited. I am so much excited about the value we are going to be getting in today's session because our facilitator for today is a powerful person. When I say powerful, is powerful. He's someone that has shown workings. Is that if that's the English I should use? That is someone that has shown workings. Is someone about the green economy, eco spaces, green economy people. I notice of us on the call, young people. It's very, very important that we have informations like this at our palms. You understand? Because it's going to help us make very well informed decisions when we are actually ready to start out investing in real estate, to know about and then how you can get the best of your investments in any area possible. So we are going to be bringing up our facilitator for today, Ore Olua Ajayi. And before he comes up, let me quickly say something very, very important because it's good to set the tone so we can actually understand the pace that we are working at. Ore Olua is the founding director of Greener Cities Development Network, and this is actually an innovation big on making things work. Has a very, very high desire and I don't know the word to use right now, but he has a very strong will to see that things are working very well in our eco spaces. He's someone I've engaged in conversations, and I see the passion that actually comes in when he's talking about how people can implement eco things much more better, and also when it comes to job opportunities and things like that. So with a clapping ovation and having getting to say a whole lot about our facilitator for today, help me welcome Mr. Oreolua Ajayi, the founding director of Greener Cities Development Network. He's also the CEO of Grivigo. A round of applause, please. A round of applause with a clapping ovation. Let's welcome our facilitator with the clapping ovation.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Abel. It's so nice to be here. We've really been looking forward to this conversation. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay, excellent. So we've been actually planning to have this conversation for a long time. So eventually, time is here, and it's time to have this conversation. I feel very glad to be here to be talking about this. I feel very elated. It's a privilege to be in a room with my amiable real estate strategist and advisor. Thank you so much for having me in the room, Abel.
It's an honor, sir. All right, so now starting out is a conversation we'll be having. Is a conversation we'll be
Uh, Sorry, Abel, I can't seem to hear you. Seems you're on mute. Sorry, Abel, can you hear me? Okay, I didn't hear you for the longest of time. I think you were on mute while we were speaking. So, do I proceed? Do I proceed?
Okay, can you hear me?
Are you speaking now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right. So before the network started misbehaving, so
Okay.
I was actually saying that a lot of persons are on this call prior to the knowledge that okay, it might be a real estate webinar and things like that. But we are trying to shift that narrative and then see how we can streamline it down to the green economy and eco spaces. So not a lot of persons might have idea about what green economy is and eco spaces is. So from your experience, I'd like for you to share with us what green economy and eco spaces basically mean.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. So, speaking about green economy, if a lot of people are not aware of the term, the green economy, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about climate change and sustainability, right? So, the green economy essentially just means um, every job or every activity, every task, every market within the industry that's promoting um, sustainability when it talks about environmental conservation or managing the resources of the earth well, right? So green economy, it's more like a new sector that addresses job opportunities that are in this area. So like we're having climate change issues with flooding, we have climate change issues with waste, we have climate change issues with urban heat islands. That's like the high temperature we are experiencing in our urban centers. So these are challenges that we are facing due to an increased temperature in the atmosphere, right? So the effect of it is now that there are environmental situations that are becoming unbearing, right? They are becoming burdensome. They are becoming serious challenge to our everyday life. So a new set of people need to come together and find innovative solutions to these challenges. So that's what the green economy essentially means. Professionals and everyone in the industry trying to bring about innovative solutions to addressing climate change, especially through the route of sustainable projects, sustainable businesses. And one very simple or very familiar profession in the green economy is solar power technicians or solar energy installers, right? Um, a couple years back, solar energy um, wasn't so common, right? But due to the advent of the danger that fossil fuel has been um, has been contributing to the environment, right? So there has been innovative and research and development to come about. How can we generate energy using a different source that is cleaner, right? Rather than destroying the environment, how can we still generate electricity that we need? And it's not at the expense of the environment. So that's how certain organizations and industries came up with research in photovoltaic cells. So that's like PVC, that's the panels for solar. So solar is a green economy, and I work in the green economy. So for ecospaces just generally mean creating eco-friendly environments for people, right? I'm sure a lot of us have seen foreign movies, right? And you would be very pleased with the aesthetics or with how beautiful the urban landscape is. The way you see the greens, the way you see how roads are well networked, the way properties or housings are well arranged, infrastructure is easier to get, right? So ecospaces is just an ideology that means people are able to get what they want to support or to improve their quality of living, be it in a social way, in an economic way, in an environmentally responsible way. So creating ecospaces essentially means that you are taking cognizance, you are taking intentional efforts at ensuring that look, we are not just developing cities, because that's the essence of urbanization. So right, a lot of people are migrating to urban centers from villages or from suburban areas or from remote areas, right? A lot of people are coming to urban areas. So there's now a lot of stress on the infrastructure that would have been provided to cater for probably 1,000 or 10,000 people. By the time there are more people in that city, there's going to be infrastructure stress. So it now builds on the government to now do a proper data analytics to understand that, okay, these are the total number of people we have here. This is the income bracket for these people. Okay, these are the kind of services we can offer. So promoting green economy and ecospaces essentially is saying that let us leverage or from the standpoint where the world is now, concerning environmental degradation and challenges, how can we find innovative solutions to ensure that we are now living more responsible and quality life rather than just um, urbanizing, building houses at the detriment of our quality lifestyles. Yeah, so that's what it all means. So that's an introduction to what green economy and ecospaces mean.
All right, that's a very intensive one, and I'm really glad that you're able to explain in depth. You're able to give us in depth information, in depth knowledge on what the green economy actually is. Now, I have there's something I was researching about, and it amazed me a lot. In 2014, this sector, which is real estate sector, um, had a growth projection of about 7.24% in the global economy. And then we also have, and this contribution that it made gave us an outcome of about $2.14 trillion into the Nigeria economy, which is the contribution that real estate actually has done. Now, why am I saying this? Because of what you have mentioned to us, that a lot of persons are now moving from the local areas to more places that are urbanized, and then there is now a need for urbanization in these areas. Now, one of my questions now is, can you elaborate more when we talk about the significance, particularly as it relates to Nigeria, because we're also going to see how we relate that to real estate investment here. So we want to see how you can relate more about the significance of urban planning, so that people who are here in this session can actually say, oh, I have idea about this thing. I have heard about this before. I know how it can actually apply to the decisions that I want to make. So I would like for you to elaborate more about urban planning when it comes to the green economy and eco spaces.
Okay, that's an excellent one. So beautifully, my background is actually in urban and regional planning, right? So in the profession of urban and regional planning, right? Our responsibility is to design how regions are supposed to look like, how people are supposed to live, work, recreate, and have a holistic lifestyle within a community, right? So just take it as there are architects, right, who design buildings, right, but urban planners design arrangements of cities. So in relation to ecospaces, green economy, and all of that, um, I think urban planning is at the bedrock, right? We possess the blueprint to understand in critical details what is needed for urban development, right? What is needed for social equity, and how do we now harmonize all of these things to ensure that people are not just living their lives by waking and sleeping, working and eating. People need to be able to live. Those are the three core concepts of urban planning: live, work, and recreate. But it looks like lately, especially in this side of the world we find ourselves, people have just only been trying to live and be trying to work. We look at recreation as luxury, but the more we keep looking at recreation as luxury, the more we are going to keep having our mental health affected. And the more we have our mental health affected, the more it reduces our productivity level. And the more it reduces our productivity level, the more we are not able to um, exchange it for economic value. So urban planning essentially in its terms, urban and planning is more like planning how a region or an urban area or even a suburban area, a local area, how it's supposed to look like. So in that context, we are now supposed to first take cognizance of what is existing, what is existential in that area. There are different areas to urban planning. There is the master plan, there are regional plans, there are urban renewal projects. Like for urban renewal projects, there can be places that don't have a sense of orderliness, right? Maybe the roads are very bad, the housing conditions are poor, their water and waste infrastructure is very bad. Urban renewal now comes in there and look for innovative ways to make life or living better for these people. So now the challenge with urban planning now is it's a social service, right? You can't do urban planning without the what's the word now? You can't do urban planning without the permission of the government, right? Urban planning is saddled under the um constitution of the state government, right? So unless you are given the go ahead to make certain plans, right? You can't just move around as an individual and say, okay, this is what this place is supposed to be like, because there are like procedures, there are approval processes to start things. Um, a very quick analogy or use case that we might be very familiar with, because when I speak, I like to speak with things that people can easily relate with or see or understand. Um, so when we take a look at the Lekki Ekpe Expressway corridor, right? It's a long road, right? But what has happened there is urbanization has happened so fast based on the growth pole sector, which is located within VI and Ikoyi. Those are where we have headquarters of most of these multinationals and as well as um, great corporations, right? So people would tend to live closer to where they work, right? And if you're having eyebrow um, workplaces in this area, you would expect that a closer place where you find land is where the people working there would need to live. So now what has now happened now is urban planning should have laid down the groundwork for urban development electricity and likes. They now give out these parcels of land that have been properly put into districts to estate developers to develop. But in Nigeria, that's not the case, right? It's so shameful what our urban scape has turned into. So that's why we are doing what we are doing. We are trying to advocate for more consciousness of the people to how we can live our lives better. So speaking about the Lekki Ekpe Expressway, it's a very long stretch of road. So imagine you are at Lekki Phase 1 and you'd want to visit someone at Agungi, or you are at Ikate, you'd want to go to Osakpa, London, or you just want to go from the Agungi side to like Lekki Epe. A lot of people, Lekki Phase 1 rather, a lot of people have to still come to Lekki Epe Expressway before they um take the next turning. So how do I mean? So let's say, for instance, I'm going to Middle Hallway, right? And I'm coming from that Nikia's
Yeah.
Gangare side. Rather than having like an internal route that takes me through that area, instead of everyone coming to the expressway and creating traffic, urban planning can help to
Traffic. Yeah.
ensure that there are roads that should be left, right? Rather than having estates now blocking out or fencing out property. So there's an estate here, it's Glory Estate. The fences is property. The next estate, let's say Millennium Estate, fences is property. So the connectivity or accessibility within those areas is restricted. So everyone is forced to come to the expressway. So urban
Yeah.
planning essentially is supposed to just help people live better lives and like make accessibility easier.
Wow, thank you very much for that in-depth. In-depth. When I say in-depth, that's a very, very in-depth explanation of what urban planning can actually do for us. Now, I'd want us to take down our questions. You can write down your questions. Also, you can drop it in the comment section. The reason why, see, this session is very important. Now, particularly for the fact that we have more young people in this call. So I'd like to ask, or in this session, rather in this discussion session, please pardon me, I've been making a lot of calls today, so it's the only call I've been saying since morning. You understand? So I'd like to ask, what are the current trends in Nigeria real estate sector now that actually would gear sustainability and green energy, green economic practices? What are some trends that we can actually look at, particularly for those persons that would love to invest in real estate or want to go into real estate development and things like that?
Okay, that's a very smart one. So currently there are conversations around smart and sustainable cities, right? As
Yeah,
a solution to addressing urbanization and urban challenges. And just recently, I think a month or two ago, there was a summit called the African Energy Summit. So according to
yeah,
statistics, they say about 600 million Africans do not have access to electricity, and um, it has been identified that that's a major drawback on economic value, right? And so, how do we now provide electricity to these people? And we don't want to still burn more fossil fuels to destroy the environment. That's
mm,
where the project 300 came in. So now this is a project by an organization called Sustainable Energy for All in partnership with United Nations, World Bank, and like. So now they're trying to reach 300 million Africans and to provide renewable energy for them. So a lot of people are aware of solar energy, right, as renewable energy.
yeah,
One of the Some of the major contributors to climate change, right, is energy construction, right? So we'll come to construction, but for energy, the regular model people are used to when it comes to solar is that you buy your solar system, you buy the panels, you buy the inverter, you buy the battery, and that's expensive, right? Especially for young people. And that's what makes a lot of people just look at, well, let me just go for generator, right? Then you just keep buying fuel and servicing your engine. But in the long run, you are going to spend more. But when you are going for solar, you are going to be spending more from the onset. So the idea of smart cities or sustainable cities now is this: there's something called smart grid. So now, if you remember the policy I talked about, where they are trying to reach 300 million Africans, so I can tell you for a fact today that for every solar panel that is being imported into Nigeria, it is duty free. You don't get to pay duty when you are clearing it at the port. And these are policies to just ensure that people have more access to renewable energy so that we can reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. So now, speaking about smart grids, it would be very exciting to see that if we are having a real estate development, right? So let's say you're going to be developing 10 units of terrace housing, right? So now rather than just building the houses, right, and selling them off, then whoever buys them is now going to consider buying their own solar panel. You could offer energy as a service. How do I mean? There are opportunities. They call them green finance, development finance. There are um, policies are like principles of responsible investment. So there are organizations that will be willing to provide loans, right, or even give grants to ensure that you are able to procure solar energy and install it across your estate, right? So you have solar panels on every roof in your estate, right? And you're able to control a central inverter and battery system for each terrace. So the beautiful thing now is your clients, your the residents in your home do not necessarily own those solar panels. So it is not coming at their cost. It is going to be a loan from like African Development Bank to you as a developer. So what you now do is you are now going to be collecting every energy or electricity that is generated from these solar panels. It's more like the way our hydroelectric power dam works. So there's a central place where energy is being generated. So you are using your solar panels to generate energy and it's being stored in batteries. So people only pay for the energy they consume, just as we pay for NEPA bills. So we've used the solar panels to generate energy, then people just pay you. So let's say you need 5,000 naira energy, you pay for that. The smart grid system gives you that worth of energy, right? So even if the resident needs to leave your property, they can't take the solar system away. It still stays there. And the beauty of that is you can pay back your loan for as long as maybe 20 years, right? So there are a lot of opportunities for developers that are willing to think in the long run on how we can come together and take advantage of these things. And I think this smart grid system is actually a very important tool because, in some sense, for instance, if you're a person, um, let's say you don't even you are not a large scale developer, right? Let's say you even have the money to buy the solar system yourself, but you don't really stay in Nigeria that much. So we have people who have properties in Nigeria and don't really stay, right? There's a way you can sell every energy that your solar power is generating back to the grid, right? So you are even still earning money when you are not even in your house. So those are the innovative strategies. And the beauty is there is financing for it, right? You just need to know the right policies and know the right financing framework to like fund the business model around it. So the smart grid renewable energy is a very important solution that I feel real estate developers currently should look into.
Wow, thank you for that. That was very extensive. Now, there is something I actually took out from what you were saying. For those of us that are in the discussion session, is actually a discussion session. So you can start taking down your questions. You can write them down. You can put them up in the chat box, and I'm going to be taking the questions during the Q&A session. So you were talking about African Development Bank. That actually um, made a lot of sense to me. And then there are also some other persons that would love to get more intel on it. But before we go there, I want you to discuss something about the eco spaces now, particularly as how it relates to property value, because you hear things like this property has gone up by X amount of let's say by X amount. It was previously like this, and then it is now this price. So the question now is, how does the integration of eco spaces come into or impact the value of properties in Nigeria? You can use Lagos State as an example, anyone, particularly as it's an urban area.
Okay, that's a very interesting one. Thank you very much. So the thing about value,
Yeah.
there's what they call actual value and perceived value. The actual value is going to be the when you call quantity surveyor to give you an estimate of your property. That's
Yeah.
going to be your actual value. The perceived value is now going to be other amenities or features around your home or housing or living environment that makes the experience better. Um, and I think this is why, if you pardon me, folks on the higher side of income, they seem to find reason to have green spaces, right?
Yeah.
But you realize that people from the lower rung of income are always looking for space to just develop, but that thing at end makes us feel congested, right? There is a sense in having space, in having air. So I'm working on a project currently that is calculating air quality, right? So there's a policy that from 2030, right, every registered company in Nigeria, starting from those listed on Nigerian Stock Exchange, would have to submit their ESG report from 2028 to 2030. It's very compulsory. If you don't submit your ESG report for a year, there's a fine. In Kenya, they're already doing it. I think the fine is about $10,000. So what the ESG report means is how we understand that your organization, your company is making profit from the people and the environment. So what are you doing in return in ensuring that you are protecting the environment, you are protecting the people, and you are protecting the corporate structure of your business, right? So now, how that can now make people interested now is the idea of eco spaces is more like saying, okay, we understand that for some certain people in Surulere, they do not have access to I think I can use co-working space for instance now because I work remotely. Sometimes we don't have electricity or there is electricity shortage. A lot of young people dreams or their plans are being short or cut short because of lack of access to electricity. So now imagine you have an estate development that now says that okay, within our estate, we are having a provision for a solar powered co-working space. A lot of people they might even want to work from home, but when you understand that there's a co-working space, I can go there, meet with other people, like minds, share ideas, rub ideas from one person to one person. That's social interaction, right? I can even connect this back to how the Africans have actually evolved. The way of the Africans is around communism, is communalism. But from Western infiltration, we've now started living an individualistic lifestyle. So this has affected our cultural identity, it has affected our way of being, it has affected our manner of approach, which is why older people seem to still have a sense of bond, right, than the newer generations now. So we need to be able to, these are the things that even a lot of my friends who are architects are actually looking at now. Because for instance, too, when we come to real estate development, too, you see certain places, the windows they use are like casement windows. And that's because we have already accustomed to the use of using air conditioning systems, right? And it's not a bad thing, really. But if we look at the cultural identity of how houses were being built, we will see that the way houses were being built, they were built with large windows because of the climatic condition of where we are living in. So we are living in a temperate region. It gets hot here, right? So you need to consider that when you are making your buildings. But technology has just made us find aces. So for eco spaces, like for instance, now I've talked about co-working space for certain estates. Another idea for eco spaces now is we call it urban gardening or urban farms or vertical farms. So there are certain areas that might not really have access to they might not have access to green urban space or a large area of land for social interaction, but probably they have women in that society that would appreciate that there's a space we can go to just practice some little gardening skills, or you can do like sip and paint or that kind of a thing. So these are the kind of added features that can improve the quality of living in certain areas. There's a reason why the new First Bank headquarters in Eco Atlantic was celebrated where it was celebrated. So most of the buildings in Eco Atlantic now are they are being referred to as zero carbon buildings, right? They are being referred to as green buildings. And why is this so? It's because they have been able to take advantage of leveraging sustainable solutions or renewable energy or smart city features to make their buildings more efficient, right? The whole essence of sustainability or eco spaces is to ensure that the people are provided with the resources they need and at the time that they need it, right? And this has to come from the environmental perspective because that's the physical space that we interact with mostly. So the first bank headquarters in, let me not even go too far, even civic center. So we have quite a number of green buildings. So the things that make certain buildings green is that for instance, in a regular building, when you go into it, the tap is going to be on knob. So you open the tap, water can keep gushing out. Probably water even finished, you don't know. You open the tap and you left for work. By the time you came back, they pump water. And water is gushing, water has just been wasting in your bedroom. But because now we are being conscious about sustainability, climate change, there's water shortage. Now, the taps that are being used in this type of buildings are taps that come with sensors. So that it's until when it senses that there's movement under the tap, that's when water comes out. And if I can amaze you, this has resulted into less water usage. So there's also the rain harvesting system. So rather than having fresh water pump out from the ground, flush, it goes into the ground, pump water. There's a way where they treat wastewater now to be reused for certain things, like inside the toilet and whatnot. For energy too, there are ways where certain places when you step into there, that's when the light comes on. When you leave there, the light goes off. Everything it still come back into embodied carbons too. So so I don't go too far away from the conversation. So how can eco spaces help improve the quality of real estate properties or um properties generally? So number one is to understand that um for you to develop a property, right, you are trying to solve a solution. What is that solution? It's housing, right? So there are different market segments. There are people who buy houses not because they need a place to stay, right? But because maybe they want to use it as an investment or they want to use it for some social profile. There are different reasons why people buy houses. But the most important perspective to which I think we've neglected a lot is providing affordable housing. So everyone can do whatever they so please, right? But it just pains me that we've taken more attention to the haves, people who have, because we've seen real estate as an investment scheme now, and certain other groups of people have been disenfranchised, they've been disadvantaged, and that's because of the high cost of building materials. So now imagine that we are able to now leverage newer means of buildings for certain people. So take a look at repurposing shipping containers, for instance. You might think that for you to provide housing for certain people, you need to build housing with blocks. No, you can do that for people who can afford it. But when we are now looking at the have not, like in places where there are like issues with war and whatnot, you will see people living in like sheds, you see people living in tents. But you'll be amazed to see the I have a partner that are working together now on Eco Spaces. What we are trying to do is to build um student friendly accommodation using discarded shipping containers, right? So you'd be amazed to see that okay, a lot of costing that you'd have incurred in concrete, you'd have incurred in aluminium fabrications and whatnot, reinforcement steel and all of that is eroded. What you just do is padding the containers and you have bunk beds. These people just need a place to sleep, a place to interact, a place to lie and keep their belongings, right? So I think these are several means. So we can do eco spaces as co-working spaces, integrate them within your estate development, ensure that there is a space for social interaction. most of the spaces for social interaction are places that you even go and spend your money. Maybe you go to the mall, you have to go and spend your money, or you go to a bar or something, right? We don't really have spaces where young people, adults, elderly people can come together and interact. That's when you can even talk about the challenges you are facing in your community. Okay, this place is always blocked. How can we make it better? But everybody is
Mm.
inside their compound. Everybody are keeping to themselves now. So I think by the time we are able to bring this sense of creating social spaces where people can come together, right, in an eco-friendly way, it would improve the value of the property or the way people live around there, either through eco-friendly purpose shipping container homes or co-working spaces or urban gardens, vertical farms, or even cold storage of so in different manners and forms.
All right, thank you. That's very extensive, and I love how you go in depth in explaining about how all of these things work. I am so excited about this, and it gives me a lot of joy, particularly for the fact that we have more young persons here. I know we have the millennials and our daddies and mummies also in this session, and I know one or two of them that are also real estate developers here in this session, and I'll be expecting some questions from them. I'll be throwing questions to them also, because when we talk about green economy and eco spaces, is something that affects everybody. Now, when I want to ask a question that's directed towards the part of investment. Now, when if you are talking about eco spaces and infusion of green areas into development, particularly on the aspect of those who wants to invest in real estate. I don't see anything wrong when young people talk about investing in real estate, because as a matter of fact, we have more young people investing in real estate for the past 2 3 years now. So I love that we're having this conversation now. The where I'm actually gearing this question to is on the part of affordability when it comes to um, infusion of eco spaces and green areas into real estate developments. How can we maximize all of these things in a way that it's still very much affordable to an average youth in the economy or in the country?
Okay, that's an excellent perspective. So if we'd be very honest with ourselves, going into the property or real estate um industry, it is quite capital intensive, right? Um, However, there has been some flexible financing models that I'm even aware of that even your company too offers, where young people are given the grace to be able to like pay in installments to own certain pieces of land, right? That's a very interesting approach to this, right? However, I think one thing that is lacking is in aggregating or bringing all of this together. So so there's a body that regulates real estate development, right? Called Redan. Um, it would be interesting if we could have initiatives from organizations like Redan, because the thing about if we want to make real estate more sustainable and want to bring down the price is that a lot of organizations with reputation, or how am I going to say it? So there are two parts to real estate, right? There's the commercial part, right? And there's the public social part, right? So the more we focus on the commercial part, we are going to be neglecting the public and social part of it. How do I mean? So for instance, I've worked with certain real estate agents as an urban planner. Of course, I help you design urban design layouts and um procure relevant land title documents. And what I observe is, for instance, there is a master plan, like for the Ekpe master plan. I was privileged to do a review of a community layout extension in Ekpe. So a beautiful thing is there was a time when I was doing this review of this piece of land in in hectares, right? We have divided the plot in accordance to the provision of the constitution or the law or the land use act, that's our guiding document, to measure, I think, about 18 meters by 30 meters, right? So by the time we are now presenting it to these real estate guys will now take it and go and redesign and still now divide our 18 by 30 plots into two again. So regularly, where you are supposed to, like, well, I'm probably not supposed to be saying this, but still there are a lot of real estate dealers in the home. I know it's something you might have been aware of, and it's not like an hidden market secret. So by the time you have one plot of land, normal 18 by 30, you're supposed to sell for 1 million. By the time you have now divided that plot into two, how much are you supposed to sell half of it? It's supposed to be 500,000, but that half of it is what they will now sell for one plot, right? That's where a lot of them now make money. So my concern here is, if we place um the commercial gains over the public good or social good of providing um adequate housing for people, we are going to continue running into this mess, right? So that's why my concern now would be having to create like a coalition of different developers who are willing to do this on the long term. It's not a short term project. So a lot of people are like in survival mode, or people are trying to get returns on their investments as soon as possible. I'm not even doubting that. I'm not flouting that. I'm only saying that there is an opportunity outside that for people who are willing to tap into the markets of public and social good. So if you are now trying to do public and social good, that you can now easily access this international or development finance, right? But if it's like a for-profit organization, it's going to be difficult to have access to it. So my my take now is, if we are able to create a coalition of developers that are willing to do this on the long term, you would be shocked that the prices of um the homes they would develop will be very subsidized, because they would have a longer time to pay back their loans, right? And in doing so, you would be looking at um, sustainable modes of construction, because now you're not looking for luxury, right? You will love it, like a lot of people to say, but you're looking for how to create the um, I don't want to use the word least habitable housing units, but you understand what I mean. There are, funny how they did the is it no, it's not World Urban Forum. I'm trying to remember, but I think it was World Urban Forum here in Egypt last year. If you see the kind of buildings they were using for their low income earners, but they call it mass housing. It's like the kind of housing 1004 housing estate. So
Yeah.
the issue now is that issues like this would stem from political will. When there is no political will, because according to the Land Use Act, all land power is vested under the state governor. That's why if you are getting consent, there's governor's consent, or it's governor's, or you're going to land bureau for the state or something. It's not a federal, it's just Banana Island that I know is under federal government acquisition and Eco Atlantic. But in other parts of Lagos, it now comes down to driving real policy, and that's what we are trying to do at Greener City Development Network. We are saying that now we understand that we have different kinds of people in the community, in society. In as much as we are trying to provide investment opportunities and housing. By the way, caveat: if you are on this call, please try and buy land as much as possible. Try and get it if you can. But my perspective to this is based off my career and based off something that I've decided to chase for a long run, which is ensuring that people have access to living a decent urban life, right? You cannot say because almost everybody wants to live in Yaba. Now you're now building houses that are so small and people are complaining about it every now and then. Now you built your house, you can't easily demolish it. If you demolish it, that's economic loss for you, right? But now take a stance where you are now using like innovative means like that kind container, even though we are still having some regulation and technical specifications issues with using containers at large scale housing. But that's another conversations on policies that we are driving. But my point now is, if we are able to like assemble containers and use it to provide housing units, by the time you don't need them anymore, that land still remains there. And just disassemble your containers away from them and go and assemble it somewhere else. But trust me, that land will increase in value because activity has gone on there. That's the concept of a growth pole. That's the concept of highest and best use analysis, right? You bring in activities to a certain area using eco spaces, right? Then you can now decide that okay, after 5 years, this place you are collecting it as lease for just 10 years to have container developing around there. In the space of that 10 years, after that 10 years, you can just remove your container and go and look for another place that looks like rural area. But in that space of that 10 years, trust me, development would have caught up with that place. And anybody who has given you that land 10 years ago, by the time you are removing your property from there, you'd have helped the person improve the quality of his landed property. So to just put it in context, let's say for instance, Abel, you buy like let's say 6 plots, 1 acre of land in Ikorodu, and you are not ready to build it yet. You can find developer friends who would be willing to invest in this, and you can now partner with an organization like Greener City Development Network. Then we now outsource funding to develop this project from like AFDB and so. Then you are now what you are just doing is to pay for like the lease of the land for that 10 years. The moment we have now carried out that project, and maybe after 10 years the lease is done, we would have found somewhere else. So by the time you are now taking out the properties and finding somewhere else, the value of that your land has increased. So rather than just buying it and leaving it here. So that's one interesting perspective.
All right, that's a very extensive one. Now there are two things I actually took out from this, but I will shoot them in. I'll shoot them in soon, very soon. Now, two questions before we open up the room for questions and answers. We already talked about how investors can maximize eco spaces, and then how eco spaces are also adds to the value of real estate investments. And then there is one part you also talked about how we can provide sustainable and affordable real estate practices, particularly the ones that are centered around building eco spaces and green economy. Now, I want you to discuss with us about the role of community engagement when it comes to the successful implementation of eco spaces within urban development.
Okay. So there's what they call participatory planning in urban design. That's a bottom-up
Sorry, I
approach
didn't get
in
that.
policy development. I said there's what they call participatory planning, participatory planning.
Okay,
So
okay.
this is a bottom-up approach in creating policies. So it's just as simple as saying you want to give someone something, but you don't even know what the person wants, but you just gave someone something, and you expect that the person should be thankful, or should not the person should just accept it like that and be thanking you. But if you had actually interacted with the person, understood what the person really needs, maybe the person just needs a pencil, and you went to buy a permanent marker for the person, you're not like, do you know how much I bought this permanent marker, and you are complaining, but the person needs just a pencil, right? So this is where community participation works. Like I said, for eco spaces, what we do with eco spaces now is that eco spaces is targeted to the needs of specific community. So you can be in Surulere and it is gentrified, right? Gentrification means a place that was initially lived or inhabited um, by some original dwellers, right? But because of urban activities and urbanization, the place has become commercialized, right? So developers are now buying up the properties because people that are living there can't afford to really stay or have decent living there anymore. So they buy up their property. So that's gentrification. The land ownership has moved from low income earners to the highest bidder. So where participatory planning now comes in now is this. For instance, I'm in Surulere, right? Surulere is quite congested, right? And I'm a remote worker. The beauty of ecospaces now is there's what they call evidence-based research, and those are what influences projects. So before any project is carried out, there needs to have been a research. Why is this problem even existing? What are the causes of the problem? What can we do to now solve this problem? Right? So if you now understand the community that okay, your problem now is there are a lot of young people here, but you don't have access to good electricity or you're looking for social spaces, you can now provide a co-working space for them, right? But let's not say we flip the switch. You now go to somewhere like you go somewhere in Ikorodu, right? And um the the people living in that environment, or let's say Alimosh or Egbeda, before you start saying why am I picking on Ikorodu people so much? So let's now go to Egbeda and the
Ikorodu
majority
is a
of the
gold
people
mine. Oh, don't even
Ikorodu is gold
don't.
mine, oh, please. We even come back to that. So let's now say you now go to a community where most of the people there are maybe retirees or women. So your eco space project there would now not be eco working space because that's not what they need. What they can now need can now be maybe a cold storage facility for people who sell perishables, right? Or a space for vertical for farming, right? Here is just urban farming, right? Then you can
Yeah.
now go to places like Unilag or Yaba, right? You now try to understand what is the people pressing problem. There are enough co-working spaces in Yaba, right? And these people they can't go and be doing farming, right? So what do they need? They still need affordable housing, right? So if you don't engage the people, right, they call it grassroots level, but the whole society is on individuals, right? You need to do focal group discussions to engage the people if you are going to carry out any project and you hope to get the best of your project. One thing that you don't want to do away with is engaging the people, knowing what they want. So by the time you're able to now say, okay, you are now able to understand what they want, it's easier for you to now provide a solution that is targeted at their needs. Just last year, towards the end of last year, I engaged in a research study. What was it about? It was assessing the perception of women, children, elderly people, and persons with disabilities to public spaces. For instance, as a guy, Abel, I know if you are walking on the streets of Ikeja, maybe 10 p.m. Self, nothing do you. Even if there's no light, you go down, hold your hand, say anybody will try me as I be worry boy. Now to just launch am attack. You get. But for like women, for children, for people with disabilities, for elderly people, this is going to be a challenge, right? Lighting, because there's no good lighting, they can't move about. Because drainage are bad, people with disabilities can't move their wheelchair about because pedestrian bridges are too steep to use is steps persons with disability or elderly people cannot use them. So all of these things we now need to understand the kind of people in certain areas before we now make a suggestion to them. So speaking about the macroeconomic situation of Nigerians right now, people get money sha. So regardless, I still feel community participation is a very integral part in successful project implementation. Sorry, you're on mute.
In a very, very understandable way. I love how you were able to explain this because some person, please let me know if you can hear me, indicate with an emoji or something.
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, beautiful. So now some persons in the society they practically feel like conversation. Some persons in the society feel like they are left behind because when you look at the prices of properties these days, you begin to wonder, can young people who have, let's say, corporate work or that kind of thing, even be able to afford properties again? You understand? So what you just explained now made us understand that there is always a room for communities, what are they calling now, opinion, when it comes to urbanization and the inclusion of green economy and eco spaces. Now, from your own perspective, do you think in another 2 or 3 years, with the way urbanization is going, particularly when it comes to Lagos State, do you think young adults, young people will still be able to afford properties?
Hmm. I feel say this question, na Tinubu we suppose ask o. But then, but then, that's why we do what we do. So, I don't want to negate it, right? Because that's that's where the beauty of the green economy now comes in. Because according to research, right, Africa contributes less to the um to climate change, right? But we suffer the most from the effects of climate change,
Yeah.
right? So for young people, for young persons, that's why maybe having an understanding of the green economy, how sustainability works, maybe you'd be able to like now see things from a different perspective. But when it comes to economic outlook, so even if you're earning, it depends on how much you're earning, right? As a person, before you can even determine if you'd be able to own a property. If fresh out graduates, that even if you get a job, on an average, there are people who get jobs and are get paid well, right? But um, the the thing around conversations like this now is you would need to move with much of the statistics. I don't know if you remember there was a time I think I did a little rant on my WhatsApp status, and it was about how it is that I feel like in Lagos we're like living in a bubble. When I go for research in places like Kogi, places like Ilorin, or places like Benue, places like Adamawa, you are always wondering like, how are these people even surviving, right? What are your plans for success? Like, are you even like? I don't know if you understand what I mean, but by the time we're in Lagos, we feel like, oh, more it's easy to make 100 million, it's easy to make 10 million, right? So the my
It's almost seeming as though the life is different in that
yeah,
side.
exactly. So, but me now, I'm more empathetic to a more broader perspective, not just a limited set of people. So that's why I am very interested in green infrastructure to address um the economic potential of young persons. So you say in the space of 2, 3, 5 years, the what can help us is if we are able to um create large large scale um economic value for young persons, right? Or we are able to find financial models that can be inclusive of young persons. Because for instance, let's say as a young person, you even got a job that is paying you 200K and you decided that okay, you want to be saving, how much do you want to save before you be able to buy land in the big old mark residence now? Or what's the property you guys are selling? Right? So it's now looking like young people are under pressure, right, to gather money to buy land, right? However, there might be other opportunities to own properties or to own land. I believe the end goal for property, right, it's in understanding what game you are playing. For young persons that are not earning so much, it will be beneficial if you are going to be playing the long term game. So that will mean investing in places where the financial value is lesser. So we are talking about places like Ikorodu that you can say that maybe in the next 10, 15, 20 years, right, you'd be sure that your investments would have like increased or multiplied, right? But people like that have more money, right? Them they can flip. They can easily buy a property of 50 million, and by the time they do some modifications, 2 years here and there, they're able to still sell it back for 70 million. But as a young person, you can't easily flip with a land of 1 million or with a land of 700,000. your end game would now be for long term. So, but for you to now be able to achieve this would mean you would need to maybe like get a source of income. So that's where green infrastructure now works. How do people get source of income? How can they be productive if they don't have access to electricity? How can they be productive if they don't have access to mingle with their peers or find social spaces to interact?
Let me break in here. I think this
Yeah.
now brings my mind to the time we wanted to do the first when the first date that we fixed for this session. We couldn't go on
Confession
again
time.
with it because there was power outage. Nigeria happened to us.
Yeah, that was a very, 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 what do they call it? It was a shocking, and that day I took a lot of meaning from it because it looked like even as much as there are a lot of young people that even want to learn tech or they are trying to do one skill or the other to still make ends meet. People are not even still talking about getting money to buy properties yet, so they're trying to make ends meet.
And
But
yes.
when the infrastructure is like giving you issues, right, it's going to be a tougher one. So I believe that a very important perspective to this is looking at it in a more holistic way. So how can we improve the earning potentials of young people, right? Then how can we now create financing models specific for young people so that
Mm.
I know there are already platforms like that, maybe on Piggyvest and like where you can even put 20,000 or 50,000. So it just whenever the money comes, but don't put yourself under pressure. So whenever the money comes, you're able to like save up, save up, save up, save up. And when you're able to get like maybe 500, 700, you're able to buy a property somewhere, and you know that you are holding it for a long time. So the more you keep working on yourself, the more you're able to command more and greater level of income.
Thank you so much for being able to throw a lot
Is it me? I can't hear you anymore. I can't hear you, Abel. Hello, Dini. I think I see you. Thank you for joining. Can you hear me, Abel? I can't hear you, but I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear you
Okay,
now.
I can hear you now too. Uh, I think you went on mute again. Was that a question to me? Okay, sorry, come again. I didn't quickly get it. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I can hear you now. Okay, thank you very much. So there are different perspectives to it, right? Could be from like the professional perspective or applied perspective. So how do I mean? From the professional perspective, we can now start looking at even though I understand that there might be a little challenge with behaviors, like if you are reduced to a certain thing for a long time, so change might be a little bit difficult, especially when the alternative is not even more expensive than the current one, right? But a thing that most developed countries have done is to be able to provide social care help for their people while they are transitioning into this kind of economy, right? So, for instance, for someone who wants to say, okay, now I don't want to burn fuel anymore. I want to use solar energy. No matter how low they are trying to bring the solar energy, right? It's still on the high side. So my suggestion or to young persons now would be one, um try to um get more knowledgeable about the green economy because it's a growing market currently. It's 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 like the new norm, right? There are certain companies or investors that would not invest in certain businesses unless they meet certain sustainability criteria. So, as a young person, you would want to position yourself to understand international policies and how that influence your business. So, for instance, let's say you, as a young person, you run a store, right? If um if you want to collect loan from Providence Bank, and this is just insider information, and if you're able to confirm that you are actually using renewable energy like solar, you have more tendency to receive the loan than someone who uses a fossil fuel based generator, right? So essentially, what I just would say is number one, what we can change as young persons for ourselves is our approach to things, right? Young persons, especially in Nigeria, in as much as the economy is economy, right? We are still always striving hard to make the best of ourselves, to make the best of our time, right? So it would be great to be able to channel that energy to understand where the economy is driving at because even from centuries ago, there were different eras. There was the industrial age, there was the medieval age. There were ages where they were like the Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. They were just picking fruits and eating before we got into opportunities in that space, I think it's going to help in the long way. Yeah, yeah. So in professional wise, so it would now depend on the perspective to which you would now want me to answer this, because one cap doesn't fit all, right? There are different ways to make this work. But I think the major thing is getting more knowledge about the green economy and finding how these um things, these policies, these agreements, these international trade agreements can benefit you as a young person.
From there, emoji, and then we'll take it up from there. I'm trying to check the chat box if we have any questions there. Okay, I'm not sure we have any question in the chat box. Any question? At least we've learned a lot this evening. The conversation has been a very, very interesting one. And we normally have very lengthy conversations like this. Myself and already we have conversations around this, and we've thought of bringing it to the public so everybody can benefit from things like this. So, in the absence of any questions, I want to say a very big thank you to our facilitator for your time, for spending this amount of time with us. I want to say a very big thank you to every single person on this call. I'm going to be mentioning names. Thank you. Okay, let me start out with those I'm seeing on my screen. Thank you, Paul Promise. Thank you, Toby Miracle. Thank you, Div Mao Properties. Wisdom Digital, Nusa Ogbemudia, my very person. Thank you so much. We had about 20 something persons on the call, and I understand our network can be some persons that left and things like that. I want to say a very big thank you to every single person for joining this session. I hope you actually gained value from this. So, final words from our facilitator before we go. Final words from you, sir. Final words.
Okay, so my final word would be this: in as much as we are trying to do great things, let's be what's the word now? Let's be empathetic around people around us. So the more we are community centered, the more we'll be able to drive more impact and more economic growth actually.
All right, that's a very beautiful one. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in the session. It's been an amazing time. When I say amazing, it's been an amazing time. I really appreciate you. We are looking forward. Having a conversation with him that we are going to have a physical session where we'll be discussing about this. We'll be doing all of those things into final planning. We're going to bring it up to the public so everyone gets to engage with it. And I promise you, we are going to be bringing lots of facilitators, good people who are industry leaders, who have years of experience. Will be coming also to share one or two things with us. That's going to be also very beneficial. So once again, I want to say very big thank you to every single person in this conversation. Thank you for joining in and have an amazing night's rest. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ore, for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Ife. It's always a pleasure
Okay,
conversing with
thank
you.
you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Good night, everyone.